All right, welcome to Co.Struction Inc. This is a world-building podcast where we get a series of randomly generated constraints and have to build an entire world based off of it. I am Anthony Wilkinson.
I'm Joshua Robbins.
My name is Linnea Andersson.
And this will be our very first episode, so be ready for a train wreck. Ooh, train wreck, that's good. I should add that to the list.
Yeah.
Is
that already on there?
No. So essentially how this is going to start out is there are three parts to this list. One part is called influence, and that's essentially, I also refer to them as buzzwords. It's just kind of like a random feel that is going to be incorporated in, whether that be it's
like
going
an
to be
aesthetic.
Yeah, like Western or Egyptian or demonic or giant, underwater, stuff like that. Like they range all over the
place.
place.
To a story that's like a movie.
Yeah, and some of them are very much like this is a genre, and others are kind of a little bit more conceptual, like
rock and roll
or gothic or high school, vaporwave. Like it's not necessarily all super.
Okay, I mean argumentatively, vaporwave is 100% aesthetic.
True.
Nothing but.
Nothing but aesthetics.
After that, so we're gonna pick two of those that we have to combine together.
Yeah.
After that, there will be three major events generated, and so these are like things that define the world, things that have happened that make the world possible. And so that can be anything from there's a prohibition going on, there are great floods, there's a world war, aliens are arrived, there's genocide. Like it could go
genocide. Vaporwave genocide.
Bird death.
Yeah, and then there's some funnier ones like birdemic, gravity reversal, loss of sound, stuff like that.
Bill Nye.
No. And then the last thing is, in addition to humans, we will roll to see if there is another race there with the humans as well. Not necessarily a race, because it can be anything from humans, humanoid animals, demons, elves, gnomes, elementals, and then there's some funnier ones I've put on there. I don't want to ruin it because I hope they come up.
Right.
But so to start out, we just are going to generate two random numbers from 1 to 59. 40.
Great.
And 44.
I hate that.
So close.
They're too close.
Well, that's how random numbers work.
Okay.
So 40 is French Revolution, and 44 is biblical. So it has to be a biblical French Revolution.
And when was the French Revolution?
No one really knows.
You mean y'all don't know?
No one really knows.
You guys.
But obviously, French Revolution doesn't mean it happens during the French Revolution, but it's that aesthetic.
What characterized the French Revolution?
Poor people, and it's Les Mis. That's basically what we're saying.
Okay.
It's biblical Les Mis.
So bourgeoisie plus God.
We crucified him because he stole a loaf of bread.
Bourgeoisie.
Do you hear the Romans sing?
What the fuck?
And also it's about, class differences and
bourgeoisie. I mean, is this term getting lost on? Okay.
No. That's what I'm saying. Yes, you're right. And so it's not just about the specific French Revolution. And you'll see as we do this, we'll be able to loosely define what these terms mean. It doesn't necessarily mean there's an answer for what these things are 100%. But biblical French Revolution. Now we need to generate three numbers from 1 to 137.
This, Google, come on. Okay, 75.
125 and 34.
I can't remember.
34 is immortality.
Thank God. 125.
75 is gravity reversal.
Okay, I think I need to write this. This is so dispersed.
And 125 is emotional impotence.
What is emotional impotence? An inability to express emotion properly?
Yes, more like that could be one way to define it. So
this
is very interesting though, because
speak first.
Because the idea of people still in what?
Never mind.
And the idea
Cruising.
of of because at first biblical French Revolution doesn't really make sense, but if there were immortals, then people from biblical times would have still been around
at the
time that the French Revolution would have been.
So we got a continuance here. We don't get to fucking just leave one of them behind, unfortunately.
Yeah. And so here's the last one: is the inhabitants. Now the rule is if we just hit one, it's just going to be humans.
That's not gonna happen.
If it's any other number between 1 and 34, there will be something.
34.
There'll be an additional 1 to the humans.
Right.
8.
Who's our 8? Mermaids. Be mermaids. Be mermaids.
This needed anything else.
No.
8 is vampires.
Oh God.
Our predecessors to mermaids, of course.
Okay, so we have our biblical French Revolution drama. Featuring immortality, emotional impotence, and gravity reversal.
Okay.
So,
what
are we going to do?
So, here's my understanding is that basically all creatures which inhabit this world are emotionally stifled.
Well, and here's one thing. So, one of the major things about the French Revolution is how much it divided people. There's definitely the separation between the ruling
and is made neutralized by the gravity reversal.
Well, no, but here's what I'm saying. What if the gravity reversal isn't everything? What if we really separate everything into there's 2 separate worlds almost?
Okay, fine.
And so
fine.
We have but hear me out. So we have
the thinkers and the feelers.
We have gravity reversed vampires who can't feel anything.
Okay.
Who are the rich.
Okay. So that's our upper class. That's our bourgeoisie.
Did they pay to get that way?
And obviously they're also the immortals.
They sucked their way there.
As long as they can eat people, they can keep living.
They sucked their way to the top.
So obviously not everyone could be
every
immortal.
Woman in the entertainment industry. Carry on.
Probably not true.
Only 90% true.
It's think about it, because if everyone was immortal, if you could only survive by eating other people, not everyone could be immortal because you would need to continuously eat people. There has to be the fodder. And so here's our lower class who live, literally they can't even fucking get to the vampires because they live in these upside down fucking tower deals or whatever. I don't know. The gravity reversal is the part that I'm stuck on a little bit. I'm thinking maybe. But we'll discuss it more if it really is these 2 separate worlds or whatever, where everything is upside down on one, or if it's just a mechanic of something that can be done in the world, you can swap gravity they just have a button they press that could make things zoom or whatever.
I like the idea the top and bottom kind of world almost, and half the French Revolution is the lower class developing ladders to get to the tops of their towers or whatever.
Yeah. And yeah, I kind of also like the idea of if humans walk normally, the vampires they can't go out. So traditionally vampires can't go outside during the day because of the sunlight.
How about
they can't go outside because they fall into the goddamn sky?
Right, exactly. Yeah, exactly. Perfect. I love that.
And so if they are being carried around, they have to be carried around in they have to be transported always in vehicles or something like that. They
by somebody else that's not a vampire driving and or carrying.
Yeah, they can't just be outside. There's something about this magical ability that makes gravity no longer work on them for some reason.
Nobody cares about it. Nobody.
So emotional impotence. Let's touch on that.
Well, and also, emotional impotence. So I mean, I guess it just makes sense to me for this or maybe the humans forced to have emotional impotence so they don't feel bad about their situation, they've been bred.
Okay, hold on. The vampires are drawn to emotions. Let's say it's that which they feed off of, okay? Because they are impotent of it.
So the emotions make them immortal and also make gravity reverse.
Yeah, sure. Why not?
Okay.
So
they feed off emotions.
And so in order for the humans not to get targeted, right, in their other world, the vampires hunt when it is dark, right? They have to feel as little as possible. So they're clustered in their kitchens and their bars.
God. Can I make a... Sorry.
Hold on, let me finish. They're clustered in the bars and their fucking life, and they're like, basically, like, just trying as hard as they can not to feel anything about all the things that are happening, but their life is so shitty, so they're drunk all the time.
Mm-hmm.
So go on.
So what if vampires, these vampires, the sun affects them, but it doesn't burn them up.
Right.
Instead, the sun's like a big magnet. And if they're in sunlight, they get pulled towards the sun. So that's why they can't go outside, because they get pulled. Because I see this cool thing happening, like where someone opened a window, the light would shine on a vampire, and the vampire would just get pulled to the window and like couldn't get out.
Reimagine, yeah, no, I'm down for that. So vampires are now this thing that is not burned by the sun, but just simply removed from Earth by the sun.
Okay, and how could we bullshit it to relate this to the emotional feeding?
Well, okay, wait a second. Okay, I got this. So, the natural magnetism of the sun is warmth and life, right? It gives life to our planet, or a planet in general. That's like the premise here. And so, the impotence is darkness. Let's go with that.
Mm-hmm.
And if, the humans don't feel anything, because, like, we can say that our best feelings are our feelings. Anger makes us feel hot. Love makes us feel warm. Whatever. So the goal is to feel as little as possible when they are out hunting, right? That is similar to the sun. The sun is emotion. Let's go with that. And it's not good enough yet, but you kind of see where I'm coming from.
I mean, I don't know. I feel like that's a little bit of a dead end, because to me it goes a little bit into this weird, like, I don't know, but I wouldn't necessarily say, it's just hard for me to see where that leads. That doesn't make me go like,
well, we don't know where it leads, and I don't fucking know. I just said some words.
I mean, it's possible. I mean, also, I guess you don't well, no, but this is a world building podcast. It's specifically about how the mechanics work is what we need to figure out.
Yeah.
So, I mean, the whole idea, because, I mean, I get it that, like, warmth is metaphorically related to happiness, but it feels weird that we're physically making them the same thing. You know what I mean?
Physically making them the same thing in the same...
Like the idea of it actually thinking that when I'm happy I'm feeling sunlight inside me feels kind of goofy a little bit.
That's kind of cute. But yeah, it's goofy.
That's
cute.
The thing.
That's kind of cute.
It's like, it is cute, but I don't know if we're talking about this race of immortal vampires that are sucking. Well,
that are being sucked out of the world by the sun.
I mean, how does
someone's
it become...
emotions to be like would someone then, like, if they're happy, just become like a magnet? Literally, like the vampire just pulled to them.
Yeah. Because I was thinking maybe it's something more like, so we take in the sun's like vitamin D energy. Right. And maybe emotions are like the most, you use more energy when you feel emotions. And so that energy is absorbed by the vampires, but the sun is such intense amounts of that energy that they
get pulled by it. So basically the vampires are drawn to emotion. Innately drawn. They don't have a choice, right?
Mm-hmm.
And they keep themselves locked up so they don't get sucked into the sky. And the humans combat the vampires by...
Well, I think it starts out that they're being... So, I mean, this is like, the turmoil of a revolution. And also biblical. We're forgetting about the biblical.
Yeah. I mean, I feel like that
biblical term
kind of just ropes into the whole immortality idea pretty easily.
Also, like, the idea of a savior, like a Christ-like figure.
So let's make
maybe we're not specifically saying, like...
Buffy the Vampire. Vampires.
So, I mean, so our savior is naturally then a hybrid of the two. Right? I mean, naturally.
Or he's the son of the sun.
No. Okay, so naturally a hybrid of the two, or like a cousin, or whatever.
Oh, but I actually could see them calling this guy the son of the sun. Like,
they can call him that, but that's what he would literally be.
And maybe it is something, because maybe it's something like, so the... Ooh, this is a little bit outside.
It should be forbidden that they breed, but then someone did, and they created him.
Yeah, and maybe there's this idea that... this character, this son of the sun, I like the idea of him having some kind of special control over emotion. Like there's this, and he leads this group of like monks almost or something that can completely hide their emotions. That makes them almost like invisible to these vampires.
Okay.
So if they feed off of emotion, then that's like their main sense. So they're kind of like these hidden supernatural, like they like. So wait, let's go over. Can we take a step back really quick and define what these vampires can do?
Yeah.
Because I like the idea. So they take emotions.
Right.
Maybe they're able to channel. Like you've heard the story about the woman who can like lift cars off their children and stuff like that.
Adrenaline.
Yeah. So maybe that's how they have these supernatural abilities.
Is if it like fed off of enough like emotion, like gives them like superhuman strength.
Yeah.
Like,
and which is why.
But I also sorry.
I mean, like that would be how they'd be able to savage most the people who are most emotional.
Yeah. Well, but also I like the idea because it also kind of implies that there's a weakness that like if they have to get really angry to rip something in half, they get like the red eye like focus, like they're so focused on what they're doing that they're not thinking as much. Like that's their weakness. If they use a specific emotion, like every emotion is linked to a power or something like that.
Okay. Yes.
And they have to give themselves more over to this emotion before they can.
And so the more they give themselves to an emotion, the more powerful they are.
Yeah.
Basically.
And so like I love the idea of like these almost like 7 deadly sin type super vampires,
right.
you know.
Okay.
That like hear me out.
Okay.
And so they got this like, you know, you got the rage one who's all about strength and power, but he's a fucking idiot. Like he like. And you know you have you know and not necessarily the 7 deadly sins because I don't know if they all change to emotions so much, but you have like these characters that are the embodiments of this emotion, and you know like you have a like a sadness one that maybe they're able to perceive, like they can slow down time or something like that.
Okay, I like that. So I think I see what you're putting down.
And like I don't know, it almost this is turning into this weird like mix between like child emotional, like these are what emotions are series to this like, but I imagine it also so gruesome. Like
okay, so go. You sounded thought. Okay, so we basically have like you know, it's like the face reflected in the water, right? It's like the right side and the downside, right? It's like a good and bad. It's slow and sad. It's like fast and angry, that they tend to match a bit more. I mean, sadness is slow, anger is fast. What are other emotions? Let's define some emotions.
Well, so you got, I mean, I could just Google basic list of emotions, but I mean, you got sadness, anger, happiness,
envy.
Envy, jealousy, disgust.
Yeah.
It really is hard to think of emotions.
Laziness.
I'm still stuck on the 7 deadly sins.
Okay,
like
despondency.
Greed, sloth.
Despondency.
Okay.
I mean, because like to feel despondent is not difficult.
Yeah, but then it also like I think there's almost like a joke of like there's 2 vampires that like one is like despair and the other's like agony or whatever, and they're like, aren't we basically the same guy? Like,
and they're twins and they're confused about their identity, and there's a whole storyline there.
Yeah.
You know,
And then they have a kid called Depression.
I thought everybody was. What are you talking about? Surprise!
Surprise! That would be the fun vampire.
That really would be.
Okay.
Surprise!
According to Plutchik's Wheel of Emotions.
Here we go. What's that opposite of ecstasy? What's that word?
Horrible color scheme.
What?
Grief.
So ecstasy and grief. Okay, like that's a thing. Admiration and what?
This is really hard to make sense of. This doesn't.
I mean,
No.
this makes perfect
Plutchik's
sense
Wheel
to me.
of
I don't know what
Emotions,
you guys
we
are
can-
talking
we can-
about. That makes perfect sense.
Oh, see, that helps.
Because you can read the words.
So like, I also like the idea of the boredom vampire.
Disapproval.
We love disapproval.
Just standing in the
Boredom
corner,
and
shaking his head.
acceptance. It's like
Distraction.
I mean, boredom and acceptance, if you combine them, is just despondent to me.
Oh, but anyway, we're back from we took a little break to do a little research into emotions.
I went to the bathroom.
emotions.
Really found myself in there.
Oh, wait.
And we found Plutnik's emotion wheel. Now, really quick, I want to clarify, we're not talking about, the 7 feelings of men.
What does that
As the traditional
mean?
1st century Chinese encyclopedia
Oh.
defines it, which is joy, anger, sadness, fear, love, disliking, and liking. And we're not even talking about Paul Ekman's 6 basic emotions, all right? We're going with Robert Plutnik's 8, okay? Which are joy, sadness, anger, fear, trust, distrust, and surprise and anticipation. So that's going to be our 8 kingdoms of immortal vampires.
Okay. Do humans have the same 8 kingdoms?
So, I mean, if the humans are mostly like these enslaved races, because I feel like it can't be like one vampire just needs to feed on one human's emotion. They have to feed on like this huge thing.
Spectrum.
Yeah, and so I like the idea that maybe these kingdoms are specifically designed to like farm this particular emotion.
Okay, heard.
It's like an anger realm.
So you basically
have a joy realm. Like
so
definitely places you want to be and places you don't.
Yeah.
So we have these 8 petals essentially, right?
Mm-hmm.
And these 8 petals are represented in the vampire kingdom, and all the humans have all 8, but to certain extents, and so each petal of the kingdom has their guards or their investigators or whatever, right, that go into the sad peasant world that is the humans to harvest or collect individuals that which represent most the petal that which they are coming in for.
Yeah, I kind of pictured it more. They live in these great big cities, and this like the emotion kind of like I'm sure there would be some way to picture it in whatever medium this was presented in, but it's almost like as you feel happiness, this happiness escapes from you in this form of this smoke, and these vampires live on top of these big towers or whatever where all of these things gather together and they absorb it all in, and it's more like the daily life of living in these areas generates these emotions, like there are these activities.
So the humans are then organized into certain areas.
And another thing about Plutnik, my good boy Plutnik.
So this has more of a Hunger Games feel. Everybody's organized into a
little bit,
Yeah.
But another thing, because like you're kind of right. It's kind of like, well, if there's a joy kingdom, then like that doesn't seem that bad. Mm-hmm. But what if there is? So he also Plutnik combined each of these together. There's an opposite to each. It's like a color wheel thing, like you can see here.
Right.
Well, let's throw it up right here. This is Plutnik's wheel, and this is Plutnik. Let's show Plutnik.
Here he is.
Wherever we're looking, Plutnik's going to be somewhere.
He's going to be there.
Great for the listeners.
Plutnik's Serenity wheel.
Josh, could you duck down?
Josh, can you just give us a vivid description of Plutnik, please? I know you know how to memory.
Yeah, just
could you become him?
Let me paint you and shade you a picture of this man.
Yeah, so for each of these emotions, he has an opposite emotion that he's attached to it. So maybe these kingdoms are more like it's a combination of 2. There's 2 rulers or whatever who each have their own side, and people are constantly being shifted back and forth because you can't feel great joy without feeling great sadness.
Grief, right. Ecstasy and grief, yeah.
Yeah, you can't feel great disgust without feeling great trust. You can't feel great fear without feeling great anger.
You need balance. This is a world of balance, which they're trying to strike.
Yeah, well, they're actually trying to force them from one extreme to the other. They don't want there to be balance because the balance is where you have the least emotion.
Right. So like in the middle of this whole world would be like perfect apathy, right? And that'd be like the biggest fear for these vampires. And so like the Son of the Sun character we were talking about earlier could kind of be the embodiment of perfect apathy.
Right. And so basically their greatest fear is depression.
Which I think is also
just not feeling.
That's interesting to me because usually the hero is the emotional one. It's usually the villain who's the one who's like, I mean, not always. Like you have, like, I guess in cases of like John Wick, he's so stoic and like all this other stuff.
But he wouldn't be doing what he was doing if he didn't feel.
Right. And I think that's part of...
I know. Yeah. I love it so much. Okay.
And maybe that's part of the thing is the Son of the Sun, he isn't about not feeling, but it's about not letting your emotions control you. Or something like that. And because I think that's a little bit healthier than saying don't feel anything.
No, it
seems a little ridiculous.
It's about understanding the feelings that you have and being able to cope with them in a way that's for the greater good.
Yeah, but I could see these great vampires, like obviously there would be a leader among them, and he says something like the people are predictable because their emotions force them to do this. I feel like
anger.
I feel like maybe the hero and the villain in this one could almost be apathy. You know what I mean?
I mean, who's our primary villain? You know, because I mean, to me, rage is a primary villain, and that's easy, right?
Yeah, I feel like trust actually maybe.
I mean, that would be novel.
What do you mean?
Well, because trust, and it's saying like the more extreme form is admiration, or like acceptance. Okay. So like he's the one. Have you read
the Black Prism? Have you read that? Oh fuck. Okay, carry on.
And so he's able to control everyone because he fosters these feelings of.
For the viewers, the white is trust. The green. Okay.
The green.
Prism. I mean, in the Black Prism, it's book trust. The white. Carry on.
So I like the idea of him being the one who it's like he's the one they all revolve around, because you know I feel like at first I went towards like fear maybe, but I don't know, I feel like trust is this weird emotion on this spectrum.
It is.
That I would like to examine more what emotion trust is, because it's this contentment.
Okay, so trust and anticipation would be weird to explore.
Yeah. But even anticipation, like I get that, like anticipation, like it's almost like trust is something you wouldn't want to break free from.
Right. But anticipation is something makes you uncomfortable.
Yeah.
Because you don't know.
And that's why I'm saying I think the greatest villain would be something that you would kind of be okay with.
So, the greatest villain, right, there's a king and a queen, in theory, right?
Why not?
Roll
it.
Why not?
Roll with it.
Yeah. So, we have two people that are technically in power. We have our king that is trust and our queen that is anticipation, right? And they're in a relationship together, right? Ruling over it all. And I think there's such a weird tension between trust and then what is going to happen next, because anticipation is kind of exciting.
Yeah, because trust feels more like wanting things to stay how they are.
Exactly.
Trusting it will be all right, and anticipation is this need to change.
Exactly, like waiting for the change, and then trust being everything's as it should be.
Yeah, and so
in a way.
So also we talked about that maybe they would derive their powers from an extreme that comes off of the emotion itself. So I mean, let's think about what each of these main 8 emotions, what powers they would get from it. Because so anger, rage, I think it's strength. Like they can be beefy.
Interest, anticipation, and vigilance is so.
Disgust. Now, what would disgust do?
Loathing and boredom. It would be mind control, potentially.
I almost feel like fear fits into that really well.
Honestly, I was gonna say trust would be mind control.
I mean, and yeah, to a degree, for sure.
Loathing, disgust, and boredom is the control of physical things.
Yeah, so maybe disgust is more it's able to physically hinder someone, like they can cause someone to like. They can affect someone's body.
Like telekinesis, not like psychotelekinesis.
Like, because I can imagine this great chase scene where he's being chased by one of his, like... Because I figure they also have, like, these lowerlings that are, like, less powerful, but one person's, like, running through the street and one of these guards, and suddenly they're, like...
Flipping
they can
glass.
barely breathe, and their eyes are starting to blur, and they're gagging, and, like, that's what their power is, the ability to manipulate the stasis in one's body, like, to make them feel...
Potentially. We'll leave that one up to, like, middle ground.
Sadness.
Yeah.
So, amazement, surprise, and distraction. Let's touch on that, because that's something we haven't talked about yet.
I feel like surprise would actually be, for me, that makes sense. It's like super speed. Very quick.
Yeah, kind of almost to kind of counterpoint with sadness. Sadness can be really slow, like we were talking about earlier.
So that's our ADHD branch.
I kind of like the idea. What if sadness? What about sadness? Because stopping time is always a little bit OP.
Well, not stopping, but slowing.
Yeah, I was gonna say either that or what if they just got really heavy?
Yeah, absolutely. There's a certain benefit to that.
Yeah, and because I definitely could see it's like they need to smash something, like they could make their hand heavy and then boom, they smash through it. Like there's ways to manipulate it with practice and stuff like that. I don't know, slowing time, I just always feel, I don't know. For sadness also, now that I think about it, I think the heaviness makes a lot of sense.
For sure.
With the kind of the lethargy in there. So surprise is super speed. Fear.
Well,
fear is the ability to mess with the mind, I would think.
Yeah, because you could just kind of, almost like a scarecrow-esque type figure, take someone's worst fear and make that.
Yeah.
I feel like we can do better with that. Hold on.
Oh,
so we have terror, fear, and apprehension, right? And let's think about like our worst fears, as our modern day humans are, right? Rejection, closeness, inadequacy, right? These are fears of the modern day human.
Yeah.
So, who have we assigned psychological control to? We haven't.
We're going to say fear.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
That's what we're going to say, that they have the ability. Because I like the idea of. I know you haven't seen. Have you seen the new Spider-Man movie?
Yeah.
With Mysterio. What if?
Oh wait, no, the newest one. Sorry, no. I keep forgetting.
The newest one, it has this kind of the Mysterio character. He really delves into these whole he creates this mind prison for Spider-Man. It's all these holographic images, but it's spoilers for Spider-Man. Sorry. It's not that big of a... It's Mysterio. You should know, if you know anything about Spider-Man, you know Mysterio. He's fear-based. Mm-hmm. And he creates these things. Scarecrow and Batman, it's similar. Spoilers for Batman. He has this thing that makes people see their fears. So maybe it's something like that. They have the ability to manipulate the mind and what you perceive.
That. So basically the things that hold you back the most as an individual to achieve the things that you want to in your life or happiness.
Yeah. And maybe as an extension, they also have the ability to read your mind or whatever.
Right.
So they can take your thoughts and manipulate them.
Let's hold that for trust.
You think trust?
I think trust gets that. Mm-hmm. Because I feel like that's essentially, because if you look at the extreme in there, it's admiration. If you're willing to follow someone to the end of the earth. Yeah. I feel like that's more of a
trust.
That is interesting too.
What if we added pedals to this motherfucking thing? Okay.
You give me another one?
Bear with me here. Spaces in between these two, right? They have some overlap. Not as much power as the other one does, right?
I was about to say, what if... Because, I imagine, to trust, there's the major super good, power, and, maybe there's lesser degrees, trust is this complete control over the mind. But a lesser trust vampire would be able to just, read minds. Mm-hmm. And if a trust person teamed up with a fear person...
Right.
Who could manipulate thoughts, those two working in tandem could make someone experience their worst fear.
Or somebody that was bred of the two families.
Yeah, or something like that.
I think those two kind of have similar powers for sure.
Right, and so we can draw a little gram between the two theoretically.
And that's another thing, because once again, it really depends on what you're doing. If we're building this for a movie, then we would probably want to have 8 distinct kind of things. But if we're doing this for a Dungeons and Dragons game where we're world building a system for this, maybe it is your powers can be derived from a combination of these things. Right. So if you were to dip into fear and trust, you wouldn't have as full of a thing. You wouldn't be as able to manipulate minds and as able to...
I could be 60% fear rated, right? Mm-hmm. And 40% trust rated, right? Yeah. And roll for potentially that control.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So is trust just reading the mind?
I mean, trust is somebody who feels like they can tell you something and you're not going to do something bad with what they say. Yeah. But what do you think?
More fear is a manipulation of thoughts and the sense of you're gonna see the worst thing you could possibly imagine.
Right.
Trust in more the sense of I should do this, or being compelled to do something as opposed to something in your mind being warped. That makes more sense.
Also, sorry, this go back. Earlier you said you kind of like the idea of both the evil and the goodness being apathy. And the more I look at this, the more I think that maybe the leader shouldn't be one of the 8 emotions, but should be separate from it. He should be he's kind of this, he is able to use, he's the avatar. He can use all the elements.
So in other words, he's the white. For y'all, that doesn't make sense, but for lots of people, that will make sense.
And so that's what I'm saying. So maybe that, because it's
trust center.
Because then I'm fine with trust being this ability to read the mind and say what you need to hear and all this other stuff. Mm-hmm. To me, that doesn't feel like the main villain power, but it does make sense as one auxiliary person.
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, the fear...
And I like the idea of trust and fear working together.
That's really fun.
I mean, the theory is that, like, let's say they've chosen a leader and they choose a leader every 4 to 8 years, whatever. Politics. And what you want is that your leader embodies all segments, all petals, equally, right? That's what you would want in a leader in this theory. And so, as it remains, they can embody all emotions equally.
Yeah.
Right? Right? Is that what you're saying?
Yeah. Okay. And that's the thing. So he's able to feed off all the emotions, where these other ones have specialized into feeding on one. And then like and I think there's different classes even within this system of like these purebred emotional, like I'm only trust, I'm only joy, and these other ones
I'm only rage, I'm only ecstasy.
But others who are like, well, yeah, I'm trust, but I have a little bit like I do.
And you have your most elitist focused in the center.
Yeah, and
they're just like, you know, your ecstasy ones are just like these fucked up like pixie fuckers.
I would say, I feel like joy almost could be like the ability to like give someone like these like amazing hallucinations they just feel just absolutely incredible, to have the worst come down ever. And so like they become like dependent on it, more of like an addictive kind of thing.
Yes,
the only thing that worries me is that sounds very close to fear, which is mind
How
manipulation.
How does that sound close to fear?
I know it's negative mind manipulation.
I don't agree at all. I don't agree at all. How does that feel close to fear?
It's a different connotation, but it's the same ability.
I mean, to make somebody feel joy. So let's say I came up to you on the street and I like touched you.
I'm not saying the feeling's the same. I'm saying the power to like what I'm saying is, so the fear is the ability to like mess with people's perception. Oh, but you're just saying make them feel
the
more
sensation
joy?
of just the sensation.
But then you could say everyone's power is like I have the ability to make you feel more anger. I have the ability.
Well, we don't have to do it that way.
So what is
that's the only reason I'm saying I want to avoid making joy's power. I can make you feel joy if possible. Because I think there's something else. I think there's something more interesting to explore.
I mean, let's say I were to make you feel joy, right? Because I think that it works for joy and it doesn't work for the others. Hold on. Okay? Because it's like, joy is like you just took MDMA. Okay? Bear with me.
Or you just took ecstasy, which is the other emotion under joy.
Same. Okay? It's the same. Okay? Let's say I'm that one. Okay? I'm more. So, it's like I can make you feel this ecstasy, and you can feel ecstasy without any reason. Right? And we can validate that. We can validate that in a way. You can't really make somebody feel vigilance unless they have something they care about.
And so, do we settle on joy? Oh no, it's the vampire train.
The vampire. No, I feel like this is definitely the transportation system to get the lower class people who are like shifting emotions. Like, oh yeah, I'm taking the rage train.
Full of red and mouth noises.
The terror line.
Full of mouth noises.
Okay, so this is something. So we got our 8 vampire emotions. The gravity reversal comes not necessarily in full reversal, but they are pulled towards sunlight.
Mm-hmm. Holistically.
Because of the sun is the source of all life on Earth.
Right.
And so it makes sense that it's the absolute. Their power comes from this energy. And it has to be filtered. It gets filtered down enough to where they can use. Like, I think there's also another irony there if they're basically getting this sun, like, second or third hand from these humans or whatnot.
Correct.
Who probably do actually have to be released. Like, maybe they can get more nutrients if they're out in the sun or something like that.
Have vitamin D.
And so it's like a big thing, them working outside and stuff like this, and then having to be brought back inside.
And then subjected these circumstances that would make them feel the full range of emotions. Yeah,
but and like there's something ironic about like how like if they're out there the energy is so strong that they get pulled towards it, but like they could survive if they could find a way to. Well, I don't know. That doesn't make sense either. Because why would they just stand in front of a window like vampires?
Okay, I mean, they can only take in the energy based on their fucked up genetics through something else.
I say humans are like a filter.
Exactly.
Yeah. And I like the idea of if they're feeding of the blood, it's not as much like taking the blood away. Well, we also discussed it. So how do these vampires get these emotions? Let's figure that out. Is it a blood thing or is it?
That's a good question.
Because I did kind of like the idea of these big, like this air that gets released in these systems that gets gathered up and like it's more like this this air, like almost like these vials of.
I feel like it's more like a ghost sucking the soul out of somebody. That kind of idea, like just sucking the emotion out.
On an individual level, or is it on a big picture level, or on a big scale level?
Could be both, depending on how powerful the vampire is.
Okay.
Yeah.
So, an individual vampire, let's say that's me, right? And let's say you're just like feeling really trusty, right? I could pull out that which I need, that feeling from him, or I could go to the trust farm. Is that what we're kind of saying?
I mean, a little bit. I can get behind it.
I feel like that's what we're saying right now. Is that we're farming human emotions on a broad scale, like cattle.
I'm trying to figure out how we also tie the biblical thing back into it. So how are these farms set up? How do you get the emotions out of the people?
The biblical could be a little bit more like just general religiousness, maybe. And so like that's part of the system used to capture them and make them feel sway is like there's a certain degree of
so basically
propaganda. Almost like tribes of Israel kind of thing.
Yeah. And like they're constantly like
so what we're looking at are feeding lots.
There's this manufactured war against each other.
Yeah.
About like which emotions are the strongest and which are like the other emotions are unclean and dirty and like you cannot like.
So we have factions. We have factions within the vampire world, and this looks like a feeding lot. We have the anger feeding lot, the rage feeding lot, and we have humans in all of these lots.
Mm-hmm.
And so that's kind of what we're getting at, right?
Yeah. Well, I do kind of like the idea of as we were saying, because we like the idea of them being kind of paired up so that you have like this, you have anger and fear.
Yin yang.
But maybe it's something like the anger and fear civilizations, tribes, or whatever. They tell them like you can't trust these other emotions. These are the only emotions you can feel.
But are innately drawn to its opposite.
Yeah. Well, I'm saying like the anger and fear would live together. And they're like, these are the two true emotions. These are the two extremes. If you feel any of these other emotions, it's unclean because they don't want them to waste their energy on these emotions they can't feed off of.
Right. Okay, got it. So somebody who can feel rage can feed off of terror?
Yeah. No, I think it is just they pair them together because you need the extremes to feel. So they kind of.
So in order to feel alive, i.e. not ambivalent, you need to be paired with a red if you're hard green, but you cannot feed off of which needs the red needs to feed off of.
Yeah, it seems a really weird way you said that. I think
know.
It's basically just the vampires tried at first to make it so it was just the angry by themselves, but they found out eventually people would just become numb to it.
Right.
So they also they also had to experience fear so that they could experience anger again. And so these people live together, but to keep them, they don't want them to waste. They like if you're growing a cow. I'm trying to think of a real world.
I mean, in another way, you have to make the humans in their farm feel both anger and fear.
Yeah, I think in general, if you're going to have a farm and you want to specialize in producing beef, you're not going to waste money raising chickens.
Right.
So if you want as many people to feel anger as possible, you don't want them feeling joy if you can avoid it.
I mean, yeah, it doesn't make them grow as much, feel as much.
So you got you need to kind of almost make these Pavlov responses in these people to prevent them from feeling joy. So and maybe that's where like a lot of this conflict comes is because people are hunted down for feeling these unclean emotions or whatnot.
Right.
And
you want your human subjects, your human feedlots to fluctuate between anger and fear constantly.
Yeah. In
order to feed both. And
now I'm kind of going against what I said earlier. Maybe the big baddie is not as much about he's about suppression of emotion.
Okay. So you want to
and his scary thing is like he can basically make all the other vampires helpless because he can completely negate their power, and he can almost like steal emotion or something like that.
I like that because he wouldn't want to suppress emotion because he needs to feed off of it, right?
Yeah.
And
that's what I mean. I think maybe like a side part of his is he can like in a room of other vampires, he can stop them all from accessing their powers. While our hero is about experiencing the emotion. So maybe this half-breed human vampire finds out that he has the ability to, like, he's being raised as a human, but finds out he has the ability to do this. And unlike most vampires where he's kind of hindered by having to specialize, the avatar earlier.
He gives instead of takes.
He gives instead of takes. Interesting.
Right? And so it's like he's this human, and a human is in this world all giving, okay? And in this world, vampires are all taking. And so he can give and he can take. Right, and so he can be the balancer
because he can filter because he's a human, but he also technically still would need to feed because he's part vampire. So
and maybe it turns out the bad guy has the exact same thing he does, but the bad guy only takes.
Right, because he is not of a pure heart.
Because that would be a cool moment if when they finally face off, he does something. He's like, oh, and the bad guy's like, oh, that's impressive, but I can do that too. And he does, and he goes, I just choose not to, and then he takes it all back or whatever. Right.
But then he's able to give. And then in that moment with the bad guy, he's able to give all of these emotions that throw him totally off his game.
Yeah, but also with him able to take these emotions or whatnot, and maybe I do think you have to set limits. Like maybe it is like
this isn't Dragon Ball Z. We will set limits.
Yeah, to a certain degree, it has to be. They have to want the emotions to be taken, or he has to take it, or there has to be some kind of process.
Or you have to be more powerful or more practiced in giving in order to force someone to take it.
Or some kind of equivalency exchange, like he can't just take joy. He has to give something else before he can.
Right.
And so
checks and balances.
Yeah, I like the idea of him having to in combat almost make these scenarios. I imagine a lot I know you guys haven't seen too much JoJo Bizarre Adventure. You might not have seen any at all. But there are all these situations where the hero seems like they're all down and out, and then they're like, haha, you've fallen for my plan. This was all a ruse that I was putting in place. And him putting in the situation where he's finally cornered and crying and all this other stuff over his badly injured friend, and this vampire's like, I've got you now. And it's like, no, I just needed all the sadness before I could create joy so I could fly and do this thing.
Counterpower.
Yeah, so he's able to generate these emotions and transfer them to different emotions at will or something like that.
Right.
Or, I don't know, and maybe his power evolves and changes.
Okay, so let's say our leader then, our vampiric leader, he is able to take all.
Mm-hmm.
And our hero is able to take and give all, but to a lesser extent because he is young and he is also a half-blood.
Yeah, so he hasn't learned to use it. So and that's why I'm saying I think his powers evolve. Maybe at first it is literally he finds out that he can give emotion,
mm-hmm.
and then later it turns out that he can
take away emotion.
Yeah, he can accept emotion from someone else if they choose to give it to him, and then he figures out he can transmute emotion later on. He can change one emotion to the other. And then, eventually by the end, he is able to take emotion. And
I think that basically, I think that with our hero and our main villain, they both need to have stores of all, right? Specifically for our hero, he needs to have kind of like a power bar of all emotions in place.
Well, that could be his team almost. He has these people that no joke. People and it's they're very much these caricatures of people who are these things. Some super mad guy or whatever, and some super this and this and this.
Super vigilant, super joyful, super whatever.
Yeah, who he finds, and who are these special people who he brings with them, who are freely working with him and all this stuff, and and maybe there is a danger. I think there does need to be because you need stakes. I think it is something if you take too much of this emotion, you become this husk. If you take too much, then you won't be able to generate it again.
Right. So let's say he saw somebody.
If that's the case, then you will just basically starve yourself. You won't want to eat. You won't want to do all this.
So let's say he has all of his power bars up innately, right? And then he sees somebody who's just so sad because their spouse died or whatever. And so he tries to give them joy and joy and joy, but he can only give them so much before his shit becomes unbalanced and he can't function.
Mm-hmm.
Is that kind of the feel there?
Yeah, well, and I was saying, what are the stakes for, because if it's just people taking emotions and okay, the vampire has taken all my emotion, why does that matter?
Well, I'm talking about the hybrid.
I was...
Specifically him.
Yeah, but part of the thing I'm saying is, why would it matter if, what are the stakes for him?
Because why doesn't he would have to work, because he would have to work to get the joy back up.
Yeah, I'm just trying to make the stakes a little bit higher than it's inconvenient.
I think, the death equivalent in this world, or something equivalent to death would be apathy. And it's because, like you said, if you just feel absolutely nothing, then, like, yeah, you're going to starve yourself, or eventually you'll just kind of waste away, go into, like, a vegetative state.
Yeah.
I really like that. Instead of, like,
And so that's the thing, like, that's because these vampires, they choose not to do that, because if they don't drain you all the way, you can grow it back. But if they do take it all, it's gone.
Right.
You know? And then after that, you're basically this walking corpse. And so I like the idea of, at least maybe that's one of the final things he actually gets, is the ability to give emotion. Like, maybe that's one of the final powers he unlocks.
Yeah. And, like, one of the sticks of, like, you know, the big bad could be that, like, he can take anyone who is, like, a husk and, like, control them or something, and has, like, this army of just not quite undead people, but just unfeeling people.
Yeah, I like that. So, like, it's one of those things, like, once you get drained, like, you do get disposed of. And maybe we don't even find out that till way later on. Like, and then it's revealed all along, like a person that he lost a while back is suddenly there. He's like, wait, you're here? You're alive? And he's being controlled and attacking him and stuff like this.
Yeah.
And then, you know, in that arc is when he finds out he has the ability to give emotions because he's able to bring them back or something like that.
Yeah.
I think, like, each, like, of the heads of each one of these different, like, emotional camps, or however we want to organize it, has to give a certain number of, I guess, like, debilitated people to the main guy, the main vampiric leader or whatever. That's kind of their tribute to him.
Yeah.
So that's kind of what the system and the farms kind of all go
well,
to.
maybe it's not even that they give him these these emotion. What is it called when someone gets emotionally drained? Let's make up a term for it. I mean, do we just want to call them like husks?
Husks, yeah.
Husks.
They don't give him husks. They give him like their most feeling people, like each emotion, and he comes and he drains them all in this big ceremony or something like that.
So the most
and then
red,
the husks
the
get like taken away, and that's what prompts him to someone he knows very Hunger Games-esque gets pulled in and is one of the people who gets husked.
Right.
And
so wait, who gets husked?
Like his mom or something.
Okay.
His brother.
His whole family.
Well,
it's one by one.
So I mean, let's figure this out. So our hero is a hybrid, okay?
Yeah.
Is the mom a vampire or is dad a vampire? Who do we decide, and what is the social hierarchy in this culture? Is the woman more powerful in the family? Is the man more powerful?
I like the idea of it being. It could be the man or woman who is the vampire, but I like the idea of the vampire being like one of the lust emotions or something like that.
Okay. So he has a slutty dad.
Or love, even. Like
a slutty dad.
He has a slutty dad.
That's the conclusion we're going to.
So his slut dad. But yeah, I mean,
because that makes the most sense that he like popped out. You know, his slut dad just like fucking and broke rules and whatever. And he maybe should be put to death because he broke the rules.
I almost kind of like the idea of.
And his uncle.
He's banished or something like that. And after the mother passes away, the son doesn't know his abilities or whatever, really. He's maybe just discovering them, and he goes to try to get vengeance, and the dad stops him. Like, the dad comes out of hiding and pulls him into this underground society of these kind of weaker, lesser-known vampires that have found this alternate way to
exist.
Yeah.
Okay, so, in my head then, right, slut dad fucks human mom, okay?
Okay.
Bear with me. And a good story begins off with an underdog in a gutter. Okay? It just does. And he doesn't know he's special, but he is. Because he's this hybrid, and that's super rare.
Mm-hmm.
And, you know, his mother dies because she was harvested as a human, that which she is, for whatever emotion. Let's call it truth or something. Trust. Let's call it trust. I feel it feels right that it's something like that.
Yeah.
If we're kind of considering that our main bad, I like that a lot.
Yeah. So his mother got harvested for trust. And he, you know,
and the fact that she made it with the vampires, that's a lot of trust.
Yeah, exactly. You know, and so he's this boy, and he's angry, and he wants to seek vengeance on the people that which his father specifically, but he doesn't know it is actually his father that harvested her. You know?
Yeah. Can I put a slight...
Yeah, I mean, not her
a slight
father,
shift to that?
Not his father, but yes.
Is the mother's raising the boy, and I think that maybe humans are rewarded for feeling more emotion than others. Like if you, they can actually measure how much you can produce in some capacity.
Yeah.
And obviously, and so his mother is one of the top producers of this emotion.
Trust.
And she's so good that she's able to I mean, either maybe the baby had to be hidden. You know, it's that classic he's being hidden away.
And as the truster, to be hiding something is a big
truster
deal.
of the month.
Yeah, truster of the month.
And so once she is taken, like he has to escape basically. Like he's like, she's not coming back. Like he comes out and sees his mom on the television or something like that, getting tusked. And like he's now having to like escape from this facility, and in the last moment he's caught, and that's when like the father comes and saves him or something like.
Right. And I imagine a shitty peasant village, and they just keep track of all these motherfuckers and their factions.
Mm-hmm.
You know, and they don't know that if you are the most trusting, you get husked. They don't know.
Yeah.
Well, how would they not know? I feel like over time, like it would be kind of obvious. Like you'd have to get to a point. So I feel like maybe it's a lottery system, but you don't know when you're put into the lottery.
I imagine it more if you're so good at it, you get put in this much nicer place where there's a lot less people. Because but
you
if
get
you're
rewarded, and then you're eaten.
Yeah, but like they don't realize someone else is disappearing from in there, because the people, once you go there, you never come back.
Right.
Once you go to the
smaller and smaller.
What if they see it almost like as a nirvana type place, where like you get to a point where you've like quote unquote mastered this emotion so much,
right?
Yeah, and then you get to go to once you
higher calling.
Yeah, the higher calling,
which is just getting eaten.
And that's the thing. Like, there's no interaction back and forth,
right?
So they don't know that people are eventually getting husked or whatever.
Yeah,
the television is just for the
propaganda of behaving better.
Yeah, it's just for the vampire. So maybe the kid, he's sneaking around because his mother's not there, and he's a rebellious teen at this point. He hates hiding around, so he's sneaking around, and he sees on the security guard vampires, whatever. That you know, he sees this thing, and after that we get the story of like he's like this similar to Christ-like figure. He's the chosen one. Because the father, when he rescues him, he does something that shows that he has this ability that no other vampire has.
Correct. Because he has the love of humans.
Yeah, and he's able to like manipulate and do this. Oh yeah, okay. This is something.
Yeah, and I think we're still like on track, because I feel like this is our leader of the revolution.
Yeah,
right.
Like this is
our leader of the French Revolution.
Yeah, and I think it's basically him and going, and I don't think it's. Once again, it's hard to super much define this if we're not going to say like this is going to be a movie, this is going to be a TV show, this is going to be a video game, this is going to be a world, this is going to be a world building system.
We're storytelling.
Like, so I wouldn't say exactly how it has to, if it is like, because if it's going to be like a mini series, then like, okay, each episode's like an emotion that he goes and fights. But if it's something else, if it's a book or whatever, I think it really is him going and trying to balance out the emotions, trying to make people experience all. And as he's doing this, he's like freeing these areas of the vampire kingdom to weaken.
Yeah, so basically the biggest picture of this story, is that you have the suckers and you have the consumers, okay? The consumers that can get emotion from the sun basically existing, the humans.
The filters.
Also, I love the idea of vampire prisons. Sorry, can I say one thing?
Yeah.
Vampire prisons are just these big fluorescent lights that they hold their hand like this. And like to let go of them, you just have to like flick a light switch off and then they fall down. But like they hold them in place because the light is hitting them and pulling them. Yeah.
They're
the
just
magnetism.
moths. I love it. I love it so much.
Shitty moths. And so you basically have these bipolar races, right? And the true balance and the correct world is that they are interbred, ultimately, in the biggest of pictures. You know, sort of like the dark side and the light side in Star Wars.
Yeah.
You know.
Well, and I think once again it just goes back to like the amount of emotion you consume directly correlates to how strong you are. And so some people find strength in trying to get as much of one as they can, and other people like they experiment in like trying to take some of this emotion and some of this emotion, and what can I get? Mm-hmm. And not every combination does something useful. Like I think that's another funny thing.
I love that. Oh, okay, bring up the color wheel. What is a useless combination of max 2? Distraction.
We're gonna min-max the emotion.
Yeah. Amazement and loathing would be pretty kind of unhelpful. Amazement and grief would be very unhelpful.
I don't know. Maybe it's like boredom and distraction together do nothing. Like because you're just like you can't focus on anything.
Right.
Like,
but you're so bored.
And like and all the, once again, if
so distracted.
If your power gets strengthened by going further down this emotional thing, mixing them together, sometimes subverts what the power does, or
I mean,
in certain
you
cases
end up
it can
being
completely
ineffective.
negate it. Like if you're fast and heavy, like
anticipation and sadness feels like it could be like this either really powerful or really
I love that. So that sounds so
Yeah.
painful. Anticipation and sadness.
but
Oh
also,
my god.
like, people could
Crushed constantly.
people could find ways to, because I just joked around, like, if you have the ability to be super fast and super heavy, that's not super useful, but you could literally become like a cannonball where you run super fast, and once you gain enough speed you then stop and become super heavy, and it's like smash through a wall. So there are like these specialists who are like it's almost like alchemy, you know, where like you can take these bits and like
and
all
so
this other stuff.
The vampires who more specialize in than that, right, will have all of these well, they'll have a military, right? And they'll have their blackguard or whatever, right?
Yeah.
That are specialized in certain combinations of things. And so we could say, oh, he's a green red. He's a yellow blue. You know?
Some like magic decks or something.
Yeah, you know, I mean, it's sort of like, oh, he's a combination of these things, you know, and that is kind of like their not hierarchy, but classification within the guard
It's
itself.
like those things you see in all, like, in basically any anime with like fighting or characters in it, where it's like the little star and it shows like what they peek off into, and then like the leaders just like boom everything. So I like that, and like how there are different schools of thoughts that like only the purest emotions are the strongest, and others who think that the combination are. So there's this subculture within the vampires themselves.
Yep. Which is basically racism.
Yeah.
Which is basically
racism. I'm sorry, if you're not red, you're not right.
God damn.
That's
I
the
think
theory.
we're getting pretty close to what I would call time.
Yeah.
So let's kind of take this last like
couple of minutes to wrap it up and be ready for the next one.
Yeah.
What's the name of this? So the Son of the Sun.
The Son of the Sun.
Our half human, half vampire
Hero.
leader of our revolution.
Mm-hmm. Our hero born in the gutter.
Modified powers.
What if our bad guy was just called Prism?
And we can't call it Prism because it's a great series that people will know about.
What's Prism?
It's called the Black Prism. It's like a very, very, very well known fantasy series.
Oh.
So we got to call him something else.
I was gonna say because he takes all the.
I know exactly. So we got to call him something else.
So we've got the sun. I mean, there's obvious opposites to that one.
He's called Vanta Black.
Yeah, there we go.
Yes, I mean that works.
Vanta Black is a product that is like very black.
Yeah.
It absorbs light to it.
Yeah, and that makes sense.
It's hard to come up with a name on the spot. I mean, maybe it's something like, I don't know. Is there a word for the
We'll
night
probably
sky?
come up with paper mache.
Because I do like the idea of he's represented as blackness, as darkness, as void. Maybe he's void.
Oh, okay, yeah, void, the abyss.
I like the abyss.
You know.
Because I do also like. So here's the other thing, like. Their powers definitely have to have names, right? Because I love the whole. I watched a lot of JoJo's Bizarre Adventure recently, and like all their stands have names, you know, that correspond sometimes to their powers or whatnot. So I like his my power is the void, and like has his big thing.
So he's the void abysmal, like something to that extent.
I like that a lot.
Yeah, you know, I feel that.
And you know, our hero is, you know,
not the spectrum. The
well, he's son of sun.
Okay, so son of sun, and then would be abyss.
Son.
Yeah.
Son.
Because he you know what I love about the fact that he's part human, part vampire. So maybe his deal is he can be in sunlight.
Right.
Oh, for sure.
Yes.
I
mean,
and since he can be in sunlight, he can receive energy from the sun, and he doesn't need to feed on people.
Yeah.
But the vampires think that crossbreeding is so dirty or whatnot, that's one of the things that Void Abyss is hiding, is the fact that if they crossbreed, they wouldn't need to feed on emotion any longer.
Right. Or that it contrasts with his whole upbringing of purity.
Yeah.
I mean, it's a purity thing, right? You know, and that's what keeps them separate, is this sense of purity.
How were vampires introduced? Let's really quick try to figure this out.
Yeah.
So did they just?
I mean, from the beginning of time.
Race, or they,
from the beginning of time, there has always been two, Adam and Eve. One a vampire, one not. They bred. The snake got mad, right? And it was like, no.
That's very biblical.
All right, there we go. Yeah,
those are biblical, right?
Those are biblical.
And then they got punished.
Is Void Abyss Adam?
Yeah.
Void Abysmal Adam?
Yeah.
Why not? I like it.
Yeah. Okay?
Yeah, I like that.
And they were punished,
and
right?
Maybe
in the garden.
Also, if the vampire is immortal...
Or whoever did the consuming of the apple is the one that needs to be the vampire.
Well, no.
Eve is the vampire.
No, hear me out.
Same though. Just flipped.
Okay, that works too.
Yeah.
And because also it doesn't need to be, the avoided one doesn't need to be a man. It could be a woman.
Yeah,
also, it doesn't really matter. But because I do like the idea of maybe it's almost out of this great sadness or whatever.
Yeah.
Because he's like, the humans will die. Yeah,
Mm-hmm.
and to him he feels righteous in his like his thing about breeding is not necessarily all like humans are dirty and gross, but it's like you can't have a relationship between humans and vampires.
Right, as per the biblical story.
What if he is just vampire then, and he's not also a half-breed?
Then it would break up the potential of a unity which is correct, but in this world that would bring balance.
Well, but he's so old that he's had time to master these powers in a way no one else has.
Yes.
So what does that mean?
I'm saying like I like the idea of him being a half-breed. I did at first like the idea, but if you want to make him Adam, I think he has to be full vampire. He has to have become it after eating the apple or something like that.
No, here's my read. He's not Adam and he's not Eve. That's just the story of the ancestry of humans and vampires. That's all that is.
Oh, okay. So just more.
Well, that's what I'm
Adam
saying.
and
What if
Eve.
he is the first one?
He's
the
Jesus.
first vampire?
No, the son is Jesus.
Would be Jesus.
Okay.
Avoid Abysmal would be
a direct descendant of one or the other.
I like the idea of it being the one, like it being Eve or Adam.
That's what I mean. I did this. Oh, okay.
No, like literally being the one who.
So he's been
partook of the
around
sin.
that long. Okay,
yeah,
then
and that's
works.
why they're
for
so
me.
powerful. Because I mean, that's another thing.
So he's Eve, and that's okay that he's a female in theory.
Yeah, it isn't just about how much raw power you have,
Yeah.
because that could be another thing. Is like anger keeps like roiding up,
Right.
like and that ends up being its downfall. Is he keeps taking more energy to try to defeat the hero, and eventually it consumes him so much that he like basically rips himself apart because he's so consumed by it. And so
he rips himself apart because he's overfelt by it all.
Yeah, and so that's the thing. Like you have to be able to master these emotions in addition to being able to take in the energy.
Right.
And so, but he's been around for so long that he's able to take in these massive amounts and still function.
Yeah.
So you could study these almost like schools of magic in the sense. So any vampire could do anything.
Yeah. Now here's the thing. Why I like him as Adam and Eve partaking of the apple, because Adam feels betrayed because Eve did something, you know? And that's why he hates humanity.
Yes.
Okay, so Eve ate the apple and they are the humans?
Yeah.
Okay, and then he is angry that they consumed, and so now he consumes as vengeance.
Yeah.
Ooh.
Right?
Yes.
Okay.
So there we go. And there's our biblical time was a bit weak, but now it's pretty good.
Now we got it. Now we nailed it.
I think we're there.
We definitely got our revolution, because I mean, all of this is going to be of the overthrow.
Right, exactly.
And all that. Gravity, I still think we technically got gravity reversal in there.
You know what? Yeah,
I mean,
we can work on it.
Vampires, at least. The second,
well, that's
the second they walk outside.
Okay, listen.
Yeah.
We can have the humans, if they don't feel enough, sink.
Well, those are the husks.
Humans, like
humans that don't
and are
don't
drawn
have no
towards the moon if they get too light.
Yeah, I mean,
slowly.
But here's the other thing. Like, if we were like some of the other options in here is like augmentation or magical powers. It doesn't mean that everyone has to experience that.
Yeah.
You know, it could be just certain people. And I think the vampires, they do have this thing. If they go outside, they get pulled into the sky.
Yeah.
Because...
And if the humans are too husk-like, they get pulled into the moon.
No,
I think
the humans are just humans.
Void Abysmal.
Void Abyss. The Void Abysmal.
Our big baddie just harvests them.
Big baddie.
Yeah. And so, yeah.
I like what we've done. I like what we've come to.
This seemed like these all seemed impossible to connect together when we first said them. But I'm into this. Like,
no, I love this story. No,
this would be a fucking rockin' anime. You know, like no joke. Like it'd be so good.
With this shit on the background, like it's gonna make so much sense.
Yeah.
Oh my god. With the wheel.
Like the War of the Roses imagery also. like you could do a lot. You could do a lot with this.
Yeah.
All right, and so let's do our talk outs. Tony?
Talk. Oh, then am I just saying goodbye?
Yeah. Is that what we're doing?
I guess so.
I thought that was the...
Yeah.
That's what you're doing.
I have been Anthony Wilkinson.
I've always been
Josh Robbins?
And I've always been Linnea Andersson.
And this has been Co.Struction Inc., the world building podcast. Keep an eye out for our other podcasts we have on the Co.Cast network. Currently, our only other major project is Co.Spiracy Inc. I don't know who runs that one. It's just two strangers kind of come into the studio sometimes and record.
It's spooky. It makes no sense.
It's really spooky. I find their masks lying around all the time, but I don't ask too many questions.
It's hard to be organized.
Yeah, they always pay their rent here at the Co.Cast at the Co.Cast studio. So thank you so much for listening. We'll try to have another episode up soon. I don't know exactly what the schedule will be yet. We'll have to talk about it, but we'll let you guys know as soon as we know. Besides that, thank you so much, and
doses.
Happy building.
Happy building.